Hello, dear listeners, and welcome to a new episode of A Pixel at a Time. This is a podcast that will talk about management, creativity, and video games development. So if you feel like this is for you or for someone you know and like these topics really resonate, don't forget to send them this podcast so that they can share this journey with us. That would be fabulous if you could do that. We're slowly and steadily growing on every episode we make. And we're super happy to still be here, sharing our journey, sharing our guest journeys with us along the way, really. And it's a pleasure to keep on going with this podcast. It has made me meet such amazing people so far, and we're just starting. So yeah, just stay tuned with us. Don't forget to follow us. If the platform you have has like an alarm, don't forget to set it up, because that would really help us with the algorithm and making sure we are recommended to you when a new episode comes out. Things that happened over this last month. So, as some of you might know, I'm slowly starting a game studio. It has been by far like one of the hardest things I've decided to do in my life. So I'm still in the journey of figuring all of that out, but we were present in our first games conference as our studio, as Makeshift Interactive. And that was amazing. First of all, like I had the chance to go to Lisbon. I rarely go to Portugal these days, and I'm originally from there. And it's just so cool to see how the industry is starting to grow over there, how like you start seeing companies starting to go into that scene. And it just makes me really happy that Portugal is growing and, thriving in that industry. And it's just amazing to see the potential of it. And yeah, I decided to leave Portugal exactly because I wanted to work on bigger games, not just be indie. And even though it was the right choice at that time for myself, I'm still very happy to see that things are moving and people are doing things, and that the industry is becoming stronger and stronger by the month. So shout out to the DevGum people. Thank you for organizing the conference. It was amazing to be there. Hopefully we'll be there again next year, hopefully as a speaker. So I'm telling this on the podcast for a bit of accountability, folks. So yeah, I think it will be amazing. So another thing is, if you haven't yet, don't forget to subscribe to our podcast. Go to our store, check if there's any of the goodies that you like in there. We have t-shirts, tote bags, pins, mugs, all of it. Don't forget to go. It's on my personal website. There's a section for the podcasts. It's always linked in the description. So don't forget to go there, check if there's anything that you would like. And it's a great way to support this podcast to keep going and take us to the next level, really. What I can tell you from some of the questions we have been getting from our listeners is, hey folks, what is the cadence of this podcast? Because right now it seems a bit all over the place. And I know, I feel you, I'm with you. But since a couple of months ago, so right now I'm recording this, it's November. This episode will air in December, but we are aiming to have a monthly episode by now. Eventually it will become bi-monthly. Okay, it's hopefully early next year will become bi-monthly, but so far we already have a good cadence of episodes to keep us going for a big while and have like a solid monthly plan. So keep an eye for A Pixel at a Time episodes that will come out monthly. So I guess this was a bit of accountability for the rest of the team. José, cough. But yeah, so stay with us. This is a monthly podcast right now. We're aiming to grow slowly, but yeah, monthly for now. I hope that answers the questions of some of our listeners. Some people also ask us like, which social networks are you on at the moment? Right now, we're just on Instagram and LinkedIn because our team is so small. This is a side project that we really want to take to the next level. So follow us on Instagram and LinkedIn if you're interested. It's just that at A Pixel at a Time. So just find us there. I'm sure you'll find us. Okay, so on to this month's episode and to our guest. On today's episode, we had the chance to speak to Mark Sample. Mark has been like, I don't even know where to start with this one, because I feel like over the years, it's one of those things where you come to the video games industry, right? And you grow playing a lot of games and franchises that you love, and you can only aspire to be like a game developer one day and to work on those video games or build something as important and as big as those people, right? And as those games that you're playing when you're younger. So lately, what I've started to realize is I'm in a point where I'm being so lucky to meet some people that worked on games that were on the shelves when I was young. Zoe was one of them. Zoe was the lead producer on Gears of War 4 and 5 on the campaign part. And Mark worked on Hitman as well. And Mark's career has been a bit refreshing, if anything. Mark has been a part of Ubisoft. He has been a part of Sony. He was on IO Interactive. He worked on the Hitman franchise. He was a lecturer and advisor for different things in his career. So it's only an inspiration to see people that have careers that are not so normalized. I feel like we have been talking about this on our episodes, either on the one with Yasmin Curran or on the one with Zoe. I think one of the things that I've been trying to make whilst I'm making scripts for those interviews is really for people to reflect on how the career path doesn't have to be something so strict, and how we can be better and make better choices for our career path, or for like, if you ever feel stuck, there is room for change. Don't be afraid of that change. You got this, you know? But this is my line of thought. I rather that people take those chances, but like really live a full life than just maintain themselves on the lower energy lifestyle just to keep them going. I appreciate this is not for everyone, okay? But I think talking to people that didn't have a linear career path really inspires me, and I hope it inspires some of you to choose different things in your career and not be afraid of stepping out, stepping back in, taking the time for yourself, reevaluating, finding your values, find what matters for yourself, for your team, for you as a leader, for you as a programmer, for you as an artist. Like, is this that you're doing aligned with what you came to this industry to do? Are you working with a team of folks that is empowering you, that makes you feel like, yes, this is why I came here? Or like, are you learning what you wanted to learn when you came to this company in the first place? And speaking with Mark was just like a very clear refreshment of all of this, and how we as humans have this sense of belonging that sometimes is not being honored by the way like the corporation life works and all that kind of stuff. And when you find someone that really wants to invest on those things and still working and believing in the video games industry and trying to change things from inside, for me, is always a big inspiration. So I think that's it. I hope you enjoy this conversation as much as I have enjoyed talking to Mark. Hey, Mark. Nice to see
Hello.
you again. Nice to have you here and to be recording this with you. I think it was quite a surprise the way all of this happened. And I think the first time I had a chance to talk to you last week, I think it was just, I left the call feeling so lifted, feeling inspired, feeling happy about the potential of we collaborating and how could we shape this collaboration. So thank you so much for coming on the podcast. It's an honor to have you here today. So yeah.
I mean, I feel exactly the same. And it's nice to meet like-minded people. And when you share that energy and you just have a chat and you feel like, hey, that was nice, that was cool. I think that's what it's all about, isn't it?
Yeah.
You know, and sharing energy right now in the games industry, I think it's really important, isn't it? I think we can all do with a little bit of a boost. So it's nice to be nice.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. I think like when it comes to this, and like especially with everything that has been going on in the games industry lately, it's so easy to get drowned in bad thoughts, drowned in the potential of the bad news that might come around the corner, or even to feel trapped in the how and why you decided to come to this career and feeling like we're not going in that direction, right? So a lot of us out there, it was my case. It feels like we came to this to be creative, and then reality hits. And when we're working in the studio, it almost feels like you're just a cog in the machine, but you don't have like that self-expression, right? I think there's different ways of working through it. And I think all, at the end of the day, all comes from the leadership and how leadership passes through from the top to the bottom in a way, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
To empower people to feel more creative, even if we need each other, even if we are like this massive machine that at the end of the day is going to bring like this amazing game to you. It's like, how can we make it better so that people don't feel like they're not making an impact anymore, or that they start questioning if games is the thing they want to do?
Yeah,
right?
absolutely. 100%. And I think that's interesting because we talked about this when we had our little pre-chat. And I think
Yeah.
it helps that if you've got a leadership or people who have experienced it for themselves, the highs and lows, and don't want others to go through it too, because I've been through highs and lows, and when I work with people on my team or whoever I'm working with, I always try to use a bit of empathy to think, what do we want to achieve and how can we do it in a positive way? Because let's face it, making games isn't always easy. There's ego, there's different ways of seeing the vision, different ways of achieving results. And that doesn't mean that people are bad, but sometimes, just taking time to listen to people and to actually, figure out a way. How can we all get something out of it without sort of trampling on each other? And as you mentioned there as well, with the way that the games industry is now, I think it's even more important that we reach out and look after each other because it's been quite brutal. So there's jobs are going, companies are going down, games are getting harder to make, budgets are smaller, people want to be creative. And I think rather than just focusing on the hard skills, people should be focusing a little bit about how would you treat you? It's like you or I, if we work together, how would I treat you as a friend at the pub? Why can't I treat you the same at work?
Yeah.
Why do we have to be different? Why do we have to be, this is, you're not a friend, this, I don't treat like this, I treat like that.
Yeah.
We're all people at the end of the day, making games, having fun. That's the idea anyway.
Exactly. And this idea that we need to bring or be a different person when we are in a pub chilling with people versus like the person we are when we are developing, it's really bad, I think. I don't know if it is like because of the culture of where I come from, but of course, like we need to have the accountability, the responsibility, and all those kinds of things. And of course, all of us have a little bit like of different masks or different ways of showing up, and that's okay. But like the whole idea of you having to hide so much of yourself just to fit in this thing, in this company that was your dream in the first place, like to get into the games industry, I think it kind of takes a little bit of the play of making games for men. And I think it might be killing creativity as well in the process and the way people show up to either bring different ideas to the table. And when I'm talking about creativity, I'm talking about the way we code, the way we interact, the way we show up, like when we're doing a planning, when we're building stories in terms of user stories, like to pass that information to our teams, right? Like creativity doesn't need to be like having all the game ideas or just having game ideas. It shows up in the way we build the game and how we enable our role, like to be supportive of other roles. I think for me, that's more what it is, right? so yeah.
100%. And, I've been in the industry over 30 years and it's starting to change, but it's taken a while. And I've always operated in that way of turning up with best intention, turning up, trying to work with people, trying to just make great games, make a living, have some fun, and hopefully release something that people want to play.
Yeah.
So I think the more that people at Cultures allow people and encourage people to be themselves, as long as best intention, trying your best and trying to be and help each other, whether you've got slight quirks or how you achieve things or how you go about it, just because it's different that's fine. Because if you get the right, when you put the team together and if they get great outcome, how they work together and how they do it, if it looks odd and it feels odd, but it works, that's kind of cool. And you mentioned about that, the psychological safety. I often think, when we were kids in the play school or kindergarten or whatever, and there was no threats around, and we would play with whatever it was, and our imagination would run, and that's where we were most creative. That's exactly the playground we should be creating in our game studios as well. Because think about when you see kids at play, anything's possible. A tube is a rocket, or somebody else, whatever. This is the shape like a horse, or it's a starfish, or whatever. There you are, and that's where great ideas. But as long as there's a fear of how am I presenting myself? Who am I? Am I good enough? Do I have the experience? As long as there's a small amount of fear, how can you truly ever get that max potential of creating fun?
Yeah, I don't think you can at all, right? Do you think, like, because of course you just mentioned you have been in the industry like for the last 30 years, and you have been like around loads of different companies, different ways like working and all that kind of stuff. Do you think our industry has grown too fast in the sense of like, did we not adapt as we should? Because when we think about the games industry back in the 80s, it seemed like everyone, not everyone, but we had like smaller teams of people doing stuff they really wanted to do. And those
Yes.
games shined through, right? And resonated so much with people. And we started to see like the boom of the video games back then, right? So right now, of course, that there was a big crash in that. And then there was a rise again in the early 2000s. And we have been rising since then, I think. But do you think we didn't adapt or we didn't grow as an industry as we should have? Because we're still quite new when we compare it to music, to cinema, to all of that. So do you think there's like a lack in skill, like in the way we've grown as an industry? What do you think?
That's a super cool question, and my brain's firing off. So it's making me think, and I think you've hit on something. So if you roll back to the early 80s and early 90s, certainly when I joined, in the early 80s, it would be the programmer, was the artist, was the sound designer, did everything. So whatever they had in their head, they could, as long as they could work with the machine, they could make it happen. So who are they going to argue with? Themselves? That's it,
Yeah.
And then teams got a little bit bigger, maybe had an artist extra or somebody doing the sound, but still quite small. And I think then that constellation of people still worked because it's still a small amount of creative people. But as you described that made me think, like, when you got to the early 90s and mid 90s, I think that's when it started to ramp up. And you still had a lot of creative people with extremely good hard skills, but let's face it, mostly very poor soft skills. I mean, I can remember how I was and how the people I worked with in the mid 90s and so on, we were all pretty clever at what we were doing, but wow, the soft skills, they needed work. They really did. I'll hold my hands up. We all needed work there.
Yeah.
And I think what's happened is that it was all right at the start, and then it did explode, and then it took, let's say, from the late 90s, another 10 or 15 years or more for people to realize, wow, with these big teams, we can't just rely on these folk who are excellent at making games. They've got to be people who understand each other. And so in some ways, it's been pretty slow, I would say, at improving. And I hope that it continues to improve at a faster rate now, because that's exactly what we need. That's really what we need.
Because like that's my feeling, is that we've grown so fast as an industry, but our skills didn't develop. And because a lot of the companies being created, like the companies still have the same leaders from those like 20 years ago, right? Yeah. So should we be investing more like in, I don't know, leadership skills, in leadership courses, in sessions of feedback, like whatever is that we should be incorporating, because maybe we're lacking a little bit more on that. And of course, how are we as an industry incorporating these other people that it's a bit different now, where people just go to university to study games, right? And they do like their undergrads, and maybe they did their foundations as well, and they do their masters, their PhDs. So they already probably come with more soft skill developed, with other different capabilities, but then don't know like the intricates of working in the studio, right? So maybe we as an industry are also not accumulating those people as well as we should. What do you think about that one?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting that you mentioned that, because going back to sort of like university education, there was a time when I worked with Sony, with PlayStation, with the universities, and what was so fascinating is, in the UK, typically, 3 or 4 years, you go to a lot of lectures, maybe you make a game or whatever, and it's very academic and theoretical. Certainly what I noticed with a couple of the schools in Sweden, you would go for 3 years and it was very vocational. Each year they would put you in a team. Yeah. And 20% of the time was maybe lectures, but 80% was actually working as a mini dev team.
Yeah.
And then what I thought was fantastic is, they would scrap the team, and then the second year you would be put together with a different team. And so at the end, you'd worked with 3 different teams and made 3 different games. And the whole idea was to start and finish something together. Yeah. And then that set you up for not only the skills of, knowing the packages and what it is to the cycle of completing the game, but how you work together as a team. Yeah. So I think that's what we need. And I also think we need, going back to the play school and the kindergarten, that open-minded curiosity for the older folk like me as well, or whatever, to be, bring your experience, but be open-minded to what the new generation of gamers want, how they want to make games, how they learn. Don't see it as a threat. Yeah. And let others shine. It's the most empowering thing when you've got stars who are younger to bring them up. And the goal of people like us who have been in the industry a long time is to get people like you and the rest to make you go further than us. That's what it's all about. And I think we need to educate the industry on that a little bit too as well.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. I already have, like, of course, I'm in comparison, I'm quite new to the industry to you, right? I studied, but then I started working in the industry like 6 years ago. So it's very, very different, our levels of experience. But I feel like I already have that sense of I need to help the next generation because I already know a bit more than someone. And if I can cause that impact on someone, maybe they don't need to go through the things I'm doing right now or that I passed through. Or at the same time, like it's about, I was talking to Zoe the other day, Zoe Kerner, and she said something like, if we plant the seed to make a difference, I've already won. Like she really thinks that way. It's like, it's not about making sure we are making the difference at every given moment, but it's about like spreading these seeds. And I really like that idea because it's literally that. It's about like bringing this knowledge to someone else and showing someone else, hey, this is possible and there's better ways of doing this. Do you want to do this as well? And
100%.
Making them think a little bit about that or like spark that, oh, wait, maybe there's something there. Maybe we can question our own ways. I don't know. And I would like to see that. And I know it's scary when we have like, I don't know, 80, 100 people, 200 people on our payroll to start thinking a little bit different because in a way, until then, it worked for you as a company owner, as a stakeholder, whatever it is, right? But at the same time, with all the layoffs and the stuff that we are seeing happening, maybe it's not working as well as people think. And I think there might be a little bit of resistance to try to do things slightly different again. But what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting what you say there. I think when you want to make a change as well, maybe we shouldn't always be starting with massive teams. Maybe we should be starting with small and building up and adding and the right people along the way. And maybe also teams don't always have to be super mega large for the games that people want to create. So that might allow different cultures, different ways of thinking, different ways of seeing. And then coming back to the seed planting, 100%. And I think it's being patient, just like growing a plant, is that this isn't something that, the seeds that we plant aren't going to show up in 6 months. Hopefully they're going to be the next generation in 5 and 10 years time. And then they'll steer the industry towards, a nice place to be. Most places are, but every now and then it's helping them see a different way. And talking about that, giving people options, allow people to make their own mistakes, but give them the guidance to say, by the way, if you do go that route, chances are there's monsters and beasties. Go that route if you want. But if you go this route, probably statistically safer and you'll still get the outcome, but you're free to choose, and then people are still in control, but at least they've been forewarned of potential pitfalls, and then so that they still can grow and feel like they own their destiny and direction too.
Yeah, definitely. Do you feel like you do that when you're guiding your teams these days? And how does that look like on a practical level for you right now?
Yeah, I mean, for me, using these as much as possible. Most people have the answers. Most people have, what they have the answers inside. Often they just need somebody to listen to them to say, so, oh, I hear that you've been saying this and this, and this. What do you think you want to do? Oh, well, I want to do this. And they have the answer. So most days I'm using those coaching and mentoring skills all the time because it's a great feeling to sort of help people achieve more than what they thought they could. I mean, that's just one of the best things possible. And it doesn't even have to be games, but, helping people work through, helping them find their own solutions. We're very quick to give people solutions, but truly letting people work that out for themselves and feel like they get that, Zelda moment, ba 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 ba. That's what you're looking for. That's what you're looking for, so that you're not just giving it to them. People are still working to challenge themselves, and that's what spurs on growth and makes people feel good. So I do that. I do that every single day, and I love every moment of it.
Oh, that's so good. That's great to hear. So from a challenging and mentoring people perspective, how do you challenge someone to grow? How are you shaping that relationship like with your team members in a way that allows them to grow and see the vision, still maintain the vision, but grow and grow individually? Do you have like any seeds of knowledge there that you can share or methods?
I mean, it's like growth comes from being uncomfortable. That's, but but then there's different types of uncomfortable. So we were talking about this. See, bad culture could be, we are 3 weeks behind and you need to get this all done by this afternoon, this weekend or Monday, and it's Friday now. So the challenge is, your growth is, team, can you over the weekend work very, very hard to get this, and then I'll be happy and everybody else will be happy. And that is the challenge. That's one form of growth, isn't it?
Yeah.
From your face, I'm not sure if you like that. So there you are.
No.
No, you don't like that growth. And another type of growth is, where it's like how people do things in the gym or pass exams. It's where, or in a game, it's like, I think this might be a challenge, but with a bit of help or with a little bit of extra push, I think I can do this. And that's what it's about when you're coaching and mentoring anybody. It's like, if it's a cakewalk on whatever they're doing, they're never going to grow. But if it's a challenge of, how do you make this game feature a bit more social? How could you get more people playing? Or what would be a breakthrough moment? What do you think? And like what you're asking me, questions, but in a positive way, where it's okay to explore. It's okay to maybe not get the first 3 ideas right, but to walk out on that ledge and know it's going to be safe if you fall, because instead of falling 300 foot to your death and that's it.
Yeah.
Hopefully fall onto something a bit soft and bouncy, and you might, have to put an elastoplast on because it hurt and it's a bit sore, but you're not scarred for life. The difference is, working hard over a weekend with no breaks often, probably going to scar you and you're going to leave the industry. Yeah. Having a good coach who stretches you and makes you feel good when you win. I think it's quite easy to know which one's the best to go for, I would say. And that's what I try to do.
100%. I think a stretch is better than either blaming someone and, blame shaming them into work more or whatever. I don't think that works. And it might just push people out, definitely. Are you ready to take your knowledge of the gaming industry to the next level? Whether you're an aspiring game developer or a developer trying to level up your skills, Elevator has the perfect courses to help you stand out. Taught by professionals from top companies like Microsoft or Santa Monica Studios, Elevator offers exclusive offers and insights you won't find anywhere else. From games design to narrative development, these courses are designed for people who want to make a real impact in the world of gaming. Plus, all of the classes are live sessions, and you will build real-world projects and meet other community of like-minded learners. Head to elevator.com by using the link in the description of this episode to see how you can boost your game industry career. Don't play the game, learn to create it. Use the Pixel at a Time code for 200 quid off. Yes, that's right. Use the Pixel at a Time link for 200 quid out. Yes, you heard correctly. 200 quid out of the full price. So go to the description of this episode for more information. Thank you. Thing that I saw when I was working as a producer was I was trying to bring like the team together by I used Scrum a lot, the methodology, and Agile in general. And I always said to my team something that I didn't see other Scrum Masters in the studio do, which was we set up a goal for the sprint. It doesn't mean we need to fully hit it, in the sense of like, if a sprint fails, it doesn't mean we're terrible, that we are completely behind, that doesn't mean anything like that. Actually, at the beginning of projects, I rather we fail a few sprints in the beginning, with all honesty, because what that tells us is that we're unlocking stuff we didn't know and we're playing with our unknowns a little bit, right?
Yes.
And that is a bit uncomfortable to like not know where we're headed at that point. But it's better to have the vision and challenge it right at the beginning and put those things at the beginning and then continue to, okay, we didn't meet this, but what did we learn Is there like a learning that we can put on the top of our backlog for our next week or for our next 2 weeks? How are we going to tackle it as a team? Do you need another programmer to work with you? Do you need another artist to work with you? What do you need? And I always try to empower teams by making these conversations a group conversation and not me deciding what the backlog for the next week was. Of course, I have like the high level stuff where I go like, okay, we have this functionality, we have this functionality. I would even like write stories for them sometimes. But then I was really like trying to get the team on the table, and the team would say, right. So from an art perspective, what do you need? From a programming perspective, what do you need? From a design perspective, what do you need? And go from there instead. But I've seen these other methodologies where people just go like, here are the tasks. Go, you need to do this week. So I've seen the two. I'm more fond of the first one. But I also know like a lot of people were afraid of this methodology. So I want to ask you, like from your perspective, have you seen both of them? When did you see teams shine the most? Do you have any comments about it? That's what I want to know.
Sure. I mean, there's lots to dig into there. But getting straight to the point about, people being uncomfortable with the method that you used, because that relies on having trust in each other. And often, that's really what I think it comes down to. So not fear, trust in each other. So, with the big shopping list, you can do that if you want and give it to teams. But what happens is, if it's not realistic and people are working and you miss milestone after milestone, you lose morale and that sense of winning or being good at what you do, judging your output. So like you say, it's totally fine at the start because you're finding your cadence, aren't you? You're finding like, how much should we bite off? And then if you get a great team, they start to self-police and correct themselves, but in a positive way. Not as in, no. But when I see it start to work, so you can do the shopping list and fail every time, and then basically everybody just goes, here's what shopping list, and everybody knows. They don't say, but everybody says, we'll only get 60 or 7% of that, but don't bother telling the producer because we all know that. And then a year down the line, everybody knows it. It's just operating at 0.75%, because it's just, but nobody wants to talk about it and call it out. So it's just easier to, the person's not going to get what they want, but it'll be good enough. Even then, good enough. So,
exactly.
But when you've got the team like, which I've seen where you get to this high functioning team with a lot of trust, it's like a symphony. It's like the orchestra. Everybody starts to play their part. And they all start to feed the project with the items that it's needed. And also they start to self-trim. Because some of the stuff that you put in the sprints might not be necessary. You get a week in, you say, we thought we needed this. Actually, we're not going to do this. It's fine. And you just cut it out. And I find it's much better to have sprints with a team that everybody trusts each other, have a clear vision of what success looks like at the end, and then self-trim and actually deliver something that maybe even less, but done well, than sort of missing the mark every month. The worst thing you can do is constantly, overestimate, miss the mark. That's where you slow down, you lose the vibe, and everybody starts to get a bit dull. So, but trust and dedication, because you owe it to each other as well. So you got to have accountability to each other. You've got to be thinking, I trust everybody on the team, and I'm going to do my best because I don't want to let the rest of the team go, because this is important, and that we'd all like to achieve a good outcome. Sounds easy, but so do you see when we're talking there, we're not even talking about ideas, we're not even talking about games, we're talking about relationships and people and how we work together. And fundamentally, that's what it's all about. We could be building a ship, a rocket, we could be building a driveway, I don't know, you could be whatever, It's all the same.
Because that's it. At the end of the day, it's like, doesn't matter where you go, either the games industry or any other industry. It's just people working with people. And there are always going to be risks. There are always going to be personalities at play. There are always going to be egos at play. So it's literally about finding a nice way to navigate this, and especially in the games industry, like in complex or chaotic projects, right? I think that's what we were talking about. And how do we create those relationships that, the boat's shaking, but can we do this, right? How the hell do we find the strength in each other to keep going and create a piece of art? Because video games is a craft, right? It's like we're all working towards this something that will be a piece of art in the end, because it has cinema at play. It has audio, it has 3D assets, it has like designers. So it's super complex. It's, if not like one of the most complex way of putting all forms of art together. So yeah, I think that's what's super interesting about this, is how we weave that together, right? To make it work. So
and I think, you know, I think there's room as well. There's this misconception that being a friendly, nice team, often that's seen as not being competent. I've seen teams that work exceptionally well together, that are friendly, that trust each other, that's become the best high-performing teams. They're not scared to call out when things aren't good enough, but it's called out in a way because they want something better, and they'll take that on board. And I think that's ultimately what I'm looking for in great teams as well, helping each other to make something great. It's not a tall order. It's possible, but you've got to spend some legwork. What I've learned is you've got to spend some legwork setting that foundation up. And I think sometimes people are too quick to go hunt the alpha male result, when really they should be setting up the foundations for success first and then launching from it, you know, rather than going for the kill straight away and then not getting it. But you know, that's one of the things that I see.
I fully understand that. You know, I had someone telling me something on the lines of, you know, at the beginning when I started working with you, I thought you weren't good enough because you are nice to people around you. And that scared the hell out of me because I was like, in a very weird way, what that person was trying to tell me was, I was wrong about the way I judged you. You showed me there's a different way of doing things. But at the same time, being nice is not something I approve of for someone in your position. And that scares me because that tells me a lot, like having in mind that person was a superior, that tells a lot about how managers might operate and how some belief systems might be not operating from this perspective of believing in each other and being nice to each other, and how like that might make people show up more aggressive than what they should at work as well, because they're expected to act in a certain way, as you were saying, right?
Yeah. And that comes back to, I would imagine it all comes back to fear and insecurity a lot of the time. When you're comfortable and confident in yourself, and you know that you can be competent and nice, you know, that's ultimately, whereas a lot of people maybe hide behind this stern exterior because inside there's something that they're not quite comfortable with in themselves, so to overcome it. But it's then passed on to the team. And then we talk about these seeds, and then rather than getting good seeds, you get bad seeds. And one thing, just something that came to mind is that doesn't even matter if you're not into football, but I use a football analogy. You don't have to be a football fan to know this. But we had the football tournament over the summer, and you know, I think it was the Spanish manager said, "I don't care what you do, just go out there and play and have fun." And you know what? They won.
Yeah.
That's the difference.
Yeah.
So it wasn't a case of, I don't want to say you're the worst, you're the weakest unless you win by 5-0. It's just like, go out there, play your best, have some fun. Bam.
Yeah.
There you go. So I think it can
That's
work.
the best way. And I think like that's when the most beautiful things happen as well, right? It's when people are also having fun, and then like you allow your mind to do whatever. And that's when you have those very inspired moments where you're just like, yeah, and you score a goal, or like, you know, whatever happens.
Yeah.
Of course, like I'm Portuguese and we have a very strong football culture.
Yeah, I know.
And it's just, so that was a great analogy for me. I'm not gonna lie. But yeah, I really think that. I think this comes back to that idea that you were saying of going back to school play and how the hell do we play on the playground, and how did we thought that we could be all of those things, and now we're just like, no, I must behave this way, I must behave that way, I must behave that way, and thinking about how that could be impacting your creativity, the way you show up, your mental healthness, like everything. So
I mean,
that's a challenging thought, I would say, but yeah.
Talking about fun and knowing when you've got it and when a team has it. You know, there was a time when I was working at King. We were working on a new prototype, and the team got to this point where we would do the stand-up and they couldn't wait to finish the stand-up. Not because they hated the stand-up, it's because they were so locked in and knew what they were doing that it was almost like, you know, can we just do the stand-up because I'm going to get on with what I need to do. And, you know, when we were talking a little earlier, if you can get teams to that point where you're so locked in and you're just ready to go. I can think of many times where we'd have meetings and somebody would be saying, I've got to go, I've got an idea, I'll have this by this afternoon. And sure enough, they would have something by this afternoon. That's the fun, that's the playfulness, and it's infectious. So what happened was when this person would come back with whatever they had, like a little drawing or a concept art of what it could be, that, oh, you mean like this? Yes. And then that magic that you're talking about, that sort of, where's it coming from? So you've got a direction, you've got a vision, you know where it's going, but there's a looseness there for people to pick up those threads and have fun with and build on it and not feel like, what do you mean this is my idea? I never said do that.
Yeah.
The game becomes the boss, the guidance, and you just listen to it and you start to feed it. And it's the most fantastic feeling because you've almost got to surf that chaos. You don't know how long it's going to last. You don't know how long the wave of creativity is going to last, but let's sit on the edge and let's ride it and let's get comfortable with, we know it's good energy, it's going to lead somewhere good and that'll be okay. Because some people find that really difficult, the way you say, we're going to surf this and see where it lands. What do you mean? You haven't got it all planned out for the next 6 months? No, we've got it planned out till this afternoon and then we'll see.
Yeah, exactly. I think sometimes it's better to discover as you go. I think people really confuse the idea of having a plan with having everything set up. And I really I don't see the two that way. I see having a plan as in there's a vision and we know within that vision, we need this, and that, right? But I really believe there's space for that to change. And I really believe the saying of just enough, just in time. So it's one of those, I don't want to do a plan for the next year, or if I do have a plan for the next year, it's probably a quarterly plan or 3-month plan or whatever, because otherwise we all know we're just lying to each other. It's a fake security because that's going to change. And once someone sees that plan, then they will go well, you said you would be doing that there. And I'm like, yes, but things change. And this is where, from my experience, at least with publishers, with other stakeholders, where things go very wrong because they want to lock in on everything as early on as necessary. And then the reality is it changes. And then it seems like the fault is always on the developer somehow to try to compensate for that change. Instead, if we were all at the beginning saying let's acknowledge where we don't know and just say, I will know more around this date. And then we can discuss this part. You know what I mean? Can you imagine a world like that?
Yes, 100%. I mean, with all the years of experience, what I've found that is quite effective is know where you are and the team's vision where you start, and then I call it the fog of war, where you can plan out so far, and then it gets cloudy and hazy. So you've got to know where you start, and everybody's got to be locked in on the vision and understand it and be able to repeat it back and say yes to each other. This is where we're going. And then ideally, you should have what is the vision of success? What is, if we do all of this, when we get to the end, even if it's hazy, but it should play like this or feel like this or whatever. And that can be loose. And then that bit between where you start, the fog of war, and the map of monsters and Mordor and where the orcs and all the bad stuff lives. Yeah. You've just got to go on that Lord of the Rings, trek past the Shire to find out, and this comes back to checking in with the team, communicating. I'm a big fan of also telling teams or working with them, it's okay to stop the team, pull what I call the handbrake, look around, look how far you've come, and then scan the horizon and go yeah, we were going this way, but we're a little bit off with where we are now. I can see that actually we should be heading this way. And then you do that with the team, and then all the team go, yeah, let's do that. And off you go. Now, those plans that you talk about, those printed plans and that, I remember 25 years ago, honestly, the team had done a course in a thing called Microsoft Project, I think it was, and they had a Gantt chart, and they were so happy that they'd done the course. They printed it out on the wall about 20 foot, 30 foot wide by 6 foot deep, and they've spent 4 weeks doing this plan, printed it on the wall. Now, by the time they printed it out, it was out of date and a waste of time. So I'm completely with you. Know where you start, know a good idea of how far you want to go, get comfortable with the bit in the middle, but don't forget to have a vision of what you'd like at the end. And then the rest is a bit of trust in people.
So how do we define success, Mark? I think that's the question.
So for me, success, certainly with creativity and vision, is no nonsense, non-fluffy. You must have seen this, where a creative director or somebody say, well, it's going to be a world where you're on a planet, you're upside down on a jet, and by the end you're saying, I have no idea what you're talking about. It sounds lots of great buzzwords and that, but I've got no idea. And everybody leaves the meeting getting a cup of coffee saying, I don't know what they're talking about, but yeah, we'll figure it out. So vision of success is, for me, is where you can describe it, so like in a story or something, very succinct. When we get here, we're going to be able to do this, this, and this. It's going to be this experience. It's going to be fun because of that. And it's just going to be a great experience. And where you do what you're doing there, you can see people's eyes, you can see their head, and they can get it. And it's simple to understand. And we will figure out the complexity along the way. I know it sounds simple, but simplicity is the ultimate sophistication. And whenever somebody starts saying something convoluted and obfuscated and difficult to understand, that's not a vision of success. That's, dare I say it, don't like swearing, that's what's called bullshit.
That's great. I love it. I think like defining success, it's always like very weird for me. I'm not gonna lie to you, because you need to put yourself in this position that you are not in yet, and you need to take yourself out of the equation and then think about, okay, well, how does success look for the game? How does success look for my team? How does success look for the company? Right? And those are all three different things, but they all inform each other in the way we should be like kind of putting this together, I think. And it also informs scope. It also informs the level of stress or the way you should plan around it and all that kind of stuff. And I think often one of the biggest mistakes I've felt, at least from my experience, is that we are always aiming for the success of the game without thinking about the success of the company, or the success of forging the relationship with your publisher, or the success of how does this mean, or what does this mean for my team. And usually you end up with this great game idea that we think, everyone wants to do and all that kind of stuff. And then you soon realize, actually, we either started this project too early because we didn't have the skills, or, either this went like out completely, this is completely wrong right now because we don't have the investment, or maybe this is not what the publisher needed. So maybe we also needed to have some honest conversations with stakeholders and other people to try to figure out how realistically success would look like. And I think sometimes people are afraid of having those hard conversations, either with their publishers or with their stakeholders. And then you end up in a situation where you falling behind, but you're also afraid of saying you're falling behind. And then the game ends up being something that it wasn't supposed to be. And it becomes a mess. I don't know.
Yeah, totally with you. And one thing I'd like to add on to top of that, what is success? What's in it for the player? That seems to get forgotten a lot of the time as well, because it's our job to entertain. And a lot of times we get how's it going to make so much money? How many copies is it going to sell? How are we going to fit this? How are we going to do that? And then the reason why we're making it is to entertain players. And if we flip it the other way, the more that we can entertain successfully, where people feel so good for the time that they've invested that they want to play more and tell others about it, that's a vision of success too. And I think we should remember that. And then coming back to how do we get there? I've mentioned it earlier, but it's always about starting small and not racing out the blocks too quickly. Investors, teams, publishers, whatever, companies, often it's about speed and getting there quickly, which is important. I'm not saying it isn't, but doing it at the right, build up at the right pace. It's like you don't go to the gym and sort of say, I'm going to lift X amount of weight. You have to build up to it, don't you? Or I'm not going to run 5K and X, or whatever it is, whatever test, you have to build up to it. And it's the same with your game idea and your game team. Build up to it. I mean, there'll be the odd story where a team just went from a game idea to 100 people in 6 months, knocked it out the park. I'm not doubting that. But most of the time, you got to put that hard work in the middle and take it step by step.
Yeah, I fully agree. I think that's super interesting as well, because when I started this journey of myself, like I quit, as we spoke about, and then like a few months ago, back in between March and April, I started this journey of, you know what, I'm going to try to make my own company. And I think at the beginning, I completely underestimated how I wanted to do this, if that makes any sense. And I thought I would be in a different place of like the place I'm in right now. But at the same time, I feel like it actually unveiled so much for me, from one, the things I needed to leave behind that weren't serving me anymore, that came from my previous like job experiences or whatever. I've realized I needed to adapt to different realities, and realizing like how accountability looks like for me when I'm working pretty much by myself. I needed to realize like, you know, all of these other things that I completely didn't think about, or thought, you know what, this is going to be fast because then I'm going to set up and I know how to get things running from the ground, and then I need to reach to a publisher and this and that. And then I started to think, well, but do I want that? Do I want to create a situation where I'm repeating a pattern I know, or do I actually want to take my time and realize what is really important to me, what is like honoring my values, what are the differences like between what I'm trying to build and my own values, and like separate them. You know what I mean? And I needed to go through all of that to actually realize, hold on, okay, so this piece that I really want to grow and shine, it's again a little seed. One day it's going to be different, I'm pretty sure, but right now it's a little seed, and I actually prefer to take my time and do small detours if necessary, but keep that idea of the vision of how I see this grow and take the time to make it cook in the right thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, even as I listen to you there, you've probably learned so much as well in that short amount of time, just by, you know, we're talking about growth before that challenge, you know, and if you want it, you'll figure it out. And I'm sure you have. And it sounds like when I listen to you there, you've kind of laid out scattered a load of seeds and ideas, but you've kind of sort of went, okay, which one do I really want to focus on? What's important to me? And you mentioned the key word there as well, which talking about games and talking about working with values. And I think it has to match your behavior and your values and what's important to you. And then move from there. And it all starts with building those solid foundations before you just race off and say, I'm going to make a great indie game, and I'm going to sell 5 million, and it's and I'm going to be retired by the time of next year. That's one way of looking at it. But I think that, the ones that go the distance, there's a deeper rooted meaning for that person and what they want, and attract others who want to go on that journey with them as well.
Yeah, 100%. I think like it's very interesting because over the last 6 months, I've reworked on my values. I think like some of the values I had in the past shifted, and I've also started to think on how does this affect the way I show up to other people, to work, to my personal self, work self, all that. Because one of the struggles I had in the past was this idea of there were two versions of me, the version of me at work and the version of me at home. And the version of me at home was constantly depleted because I was pouring all of my energy to my work self. And then that creates a big imbalance, right? Like it doesn't work at all. And one of the things I knew from the beginning of this journey was I wanted to unite the two versions of myself, in the sense of I want to be able to show up with the skill set, but I also want to be able to show up in a way that I'm proud, that it doesn't fully drain me, that allows me to still have a life beyond work, even though I'm so passionate about what I'm doing. You know what I mean?
Yes.
And
yes.
A lot of the process was me trying to take those things away and start to build them again. Do you believe that for a while I couldn't even have a schedule? I couldn't do anything that was a list in my life because my producer brain would take over and I would feel like this is work. I can't do it in my life.
Yeah.
It was affecting me like that. That's how it showed up for me. So
I could totally understand that. And I think it's about letting go of what's not important anymore as well. Just cut it and getting comfortable with that. And sometimes you just have to stop and slow down and let go, like what you did, to just basically reset. And then to rebuild and pick up the bits that are important and let go of the things that aren't. And so many times it's difficult for folk, but sometimes that's the only way forward. Is sometimes you have to sort of slow down to a stop almost, and then go again. But it gives you clarity
Yes.
I've taken a break before to get clarity, and it's worked out well. But often when you take a break, a week or two's holiday isn't enough for everything to truly spin down. And
No.
it's amazing when it does spin down, how energy, ideas, possibilities start firing, but not right away. It does take some time, but then you can be in this trough where you're thinking, is it ever going to be back? Have I just lost it?
Yeah.
Am I not me anymore? But then, sure enough, you give it enough time and you just relax and you go do whatever you do, go for a walk, do some nature, whatever it is, and then things start to happen again, and then it's cut, but then I think the learning part is, how do you just maintain and hold on to the stuff that's important without picking up extra baggage too quickly?
Yeah. Hey. Yeah.
I can see that resonates quite.
Yeah, that was very deep. That resonated a lot, like very deep.
But and talking about this, the two, I think everybody has that personality thing where it's who are you at home and who are you at work, and I think the quicker that people can get used to understanding that, how can you be your authentic self more often, is going to maintain your energy levels and maintain your mental health and your physical health. And because what happens is, even if you battle through, something has to give, and often it's either your physical or mental health. Something will give if it's out of balance, because your body's amazing and your mind's amazing at letting you know. Even if you choose not to listen, at some point it will let you know in one way or another, this is not right. And if you're not going to do something about it, I'm going to do something about it. So you will listen to me eventually, and that's okay. And I think talking about that is fine too as well, because everybody who listens to this and everybody in the world, I think, is been at this point as well.
Yeah, 100%. And I wish we talked more about that, and that as a society in general, we were more aware of those things, because before we're workers, we're people. And how the hell do we create a society in general? It's not just the games, that is more like accumulating of people in general, and not so, if you take a year off, maybe this is the end of your career, or there's a lot of, I feel, fears instilled into people that are not helpful in any way, shape, or form, that almost say that, or make you believe that you are your career. And that is not true in any way, shape, or form, I think. But yeah.
Imagine that. Imagine you take a year off or whatever, and I don't know, say you had the luxury of, you got to travel a bit, different food, different architecture, read a load of books, listened to a load of music, studied, gardening, learned a few new skills. Now, surely all of that in anything creative and otherwise, could that be a benefit? That might actually be more beneficial than just grinding on, because you come back with new perspectives, new angles, new ways of thinking, new game ideas, new whatever it might be. So we shouldn't see that time out like that is a bad thing, because it might just be the catalyst that inspires the person to be something else.
Yeah, 100%. I really believe that. In my case, I've quit in July, and I've started giving classes and trying to start my own company. It all started in March. So still had the luxury of taking a solid 6 months off, but my mind being how it is, I was always buzzing, what if this, what if that, what if that, what if that, what if that? So I never felt like I actually fully stopped as well, I think. But at the same time, it was good. It was good to have that time, and it's still good to be able to shape my schedule in a different way from a regular 9 to 5 as it was before. So that's pretty good for me, and it worked for me.
It's interesting as well, isn't it? Because you're not always 9 to 5. You're not always super on fire all the time. I mean, if you're a robot, maybe. So, being able to work to your schedule as well is probably beneficial as well. And I think games industry is starting to recognize that as well, which is good, because in the early days, it was extremely rigid. Your hours and in at 9 o'clock, start at 9, hard 9 or whatever it is, and then 5 o'clock finish, and everything was quite hard.
Yeah.
But that's loosened up a little bit, and I think that's helpful as well, because we all have different rhythms, and we find our energy and inspiration at different times, don't we?
Yeah. For instance, I'm great at doing tasks that are repetitive right in the morning, for instance. But my golden time for working usually starts around 4 or 5, which
Okay.
would lead to, hilariously, trying to stay longer in the studio a lot of the time. One, as a producer, was good for me because I could see clearly like the impact on the build at the end of the day. I would have time to test. I had no questions, or I didn't need to help anyone or support anyone at that time. So for me, it was good because I didn't have like those other things and I had some focus time. How that looked like in reality was that I would be one of the last people to leave the studio most of the time, which on the long run, it doesn't help you that much. Because then like you start stacking up hours and hours and hours and hours and hours. But yeah, a little bit of that flexibility sometimes might help people that have a different way of focusing or working or all that kind of stuff. So yeah.
Yeah. 100%. And I think you need downtime. As much you need to put great effort in. You have to, to make great games and great teams. But I think you need that equal bit of a break as well to do your own time, to let your mind rest and unwind. Otherwise, you burn out, and who wants to go there? We don't want that.
No, I don't think people want. And I think it's a wildly underestimated still. It became a buzzword, but people don't really understand what it means on a practical level, because sometimes when people are burned out, then people don't understand, one, how to support them, how to show up for them, how to set up like things differently, like in the environment to make them shine again. It's almost like the person that is burned out is the one to blame, or that doesn't make any sense. And it shows how much we're operating on a not so great value system there, I think.
Yeah. And the deeper the burnout, I think also probably the longer the recovery that you need. So if you're really on your knees and burnt out really badly, then you have to be kind to yourself to take the time to come back, because then you're probably going to be wanting to get back as quickly as possible, and then having thoughts about why aren't I feeling energized and good? I've been off 3 weeks or 4 weeks. Surely I should be better. When I've heard that some people can take a year and a half. It can take a long time for people to recover from that. So being mindful of that in all industries is really important.
Yeah, 100%. So being mindful of the 1 hour mark that is approaching right now. Do you have any final thoughts, any final questions you would like to bring? Anything?
I think we've solved pretty much most of the games industry problems on this podcast.
Oh yes, so, we definitely did.
I think if we don't need to say anything else really. I think our job's done. No, I've just really enjoyed having the chat, and I hope that folk who listen, get something out of it. And I'm just really pleased to meet you. And I've got another ally in the games industry, isn't that nice?
Oh yes, you do. Count me on. I think we need to do more of these. Like I'm sure.
100%.
Still, like, there's a part of me that wants to believe that tomorrow, when the sun shines, like, everything will be solved and it will be nice.
Chances are, chances are you will wake up tomorrow and your brain will have some answers to the problems that you've got today.
It's true. And that's already pretty good, isn't it? Because
of
the seeds we planted, it always goes back to that. Values in seeds.
Yeah. We just got to be patient. That's all.
You just got to be patient. Well, thank you so much, Mark. And I'll see you on the next one.
Awesome. See you later. Thanks a lot. Bye.
Right. I hope you enjoyed today's conversation with Mark. I hope this brought some light to what you're going through, some insights on your perspective or on how to perceive management a little bit better, or that it just provides you with a little bit of strength to keep going and finding your path and enlighten your journey in the search for your values, really. So if you haven't yet, like, as a way to support this podcast, don't forget we do have our Patreon. It's still quite empty, I do know that, but it's a way to support us and keep us going and keep on investing on material and things to improve this pod. So don't forget to go there. And of course, if you like what you hear and you would like us to either go to your event or invite us to be on a panel or anything, please do send us a message. Do not be a stranger. You can find me on socials at Inês Lagarto, and you can also find A Pixel at a Time on social. So don't forget to go there. Please do know us, what you're finding. Of course, don't forget to share this podcast with anyone that you think might be in need of listening to this in any way, shape, or form. So I think that's it for today, but thank you so much for staying with us. And don't forget to take it a pixel at a time. Goodbye! This episode was hosted by Inês Lagarto with special guest Mark Sample. Production by Inês Lagarto and José Machado. Audio design by José Machado. For more information, go to our show notes. Thank you for staying with us till the end.